Hey class, Prof. JC here, and I'm very excited about this final podcast with Dr. Bob Brower. Before we get to the podcast, I just want to tell you, thank you for the work you've done. Summer 2023, there are 2 classes watching this, between leading with service and leading with purpose. This has been a great summer. It's been great to read your responses. I hope that you've grown this summer in terms of your understanding of what purpose is and how to grow in that. I hope you've grown in your understanding of service and how to serve the work, how to serve the marketplace. And even with our special guest last week, Caitlin Stone Jasper, and all the work that we've done, I just hope that this has been value add. I've appreciated your work these past few weeks. There is no one better that we can end with than this gentleman here, Dr. Bob Brower. He's the president of Point Loma Nazarene University. You can find his bio anywhere. You can read more about that. He is, I would say, he is the epitome of what leadership is all about. Stay tuned and listen. All the questions for today's assignment, today's podcast, will actually be in the Canvas shell. But for now, sit back, relax, listen to these great words of wisdom from our president, Dr. Bob Brower.
Dr. Brower, thank you so much for your time today. I've been looking forward to this. Our students have been looking forward to it. I want to start by reading his statement, and then we'll kind of get into our questions today. At the 2018 San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation dinner, Janice Brown, a San Diego attorney, you know her very well. I've met her a few times. She was the chair of the EDC board at that time. She was mentioning several community leaders and giving lots of compliments. She mentioned Julian Parra, Mary Walshock, one of my heroes, former dean at UC San Diego, Rafael Castellano, Malin Burnham, called the father of San Diego. She mentions all of these people. And then she says this, she concludes with this. She says, finally, I want to conclude with Bobby B., Dr. Brower. And then she says this about you. Dr. Brower exudes the kind of kindness that comes out of his body. He is such a good person. He makes me want to be a better person. That's high praise, especially coming from Janice Brown. She's incredible.
Yes.
I want to keep going. The average tenure of a university president is 5 to 8 years, I'm sure, as you know. You were elected in 1997 and inaugurated in 1998. That's 25 years as the president of Point Loma. During the recent pandemic, when many schools struggled, especially faith-based universities, as you know, PLNU has remained strong and steady. And I've done the research on this. Point Loma Nazarene is consistently listed as one of the top Christian universities in the nation. And you've led for at least a quarter of that time. So I study leadership, I teach leadership, I breathe leadership. You clearly have what they call the stuff of leadership. What has driven you all of these years, Dr. Brower?
Yeah, thanks, JC. First, I'm really not worthy to be compared in that group of what I consider San Diego heroes and
disagree,
leaders.
But
and
other people would too.
Honored by that. But I think for me, what really drives me in leadership is what I see happen through organizations. I think organizations can accomplish so much and so much more with good, dedicated, purposeful people involved. And I think it happens with our community, faculty and staff and students together that produce a great experience, educational outcomes and opportunities. But it really comes out of our culture of care for each other and work together. So I think that has to be intentional and purposeful to create that kind of environment. And that's what Point Loma is.
John Maxwell states, everything rises and falls in leadership. I'm sure you know that. So there is a key piece that says our leadership, and I'm sure you would say our leadership team, over the 25 years that you've been here, how have you formed and shaped kind of the culture of Point Loma, kind of what it is today?
I think I came to a great place. I came to a place that was, I think, thriving and on the edge of so much more. One of my early models in leadership in my own studies uses a combination of really a trio of things. It's leadership. It's the term for these authors was followership, but I don't really like. It's members and membership. And then context and culture. And so leader and members and culture coming together, and that synergistic environment produces the kind of organization that is constantly changing, adapting, and becoming. And so I think a leader has to model expectations, model trustworthiness, integrity, involvement, and engagement. And so my role in a position of leadership / influence really begins with the relationships and people with expectations, performance, accomplishments, and it's the team working together. I want to hire people that are more skilled than me, more expert than me. One of my hiring phrases in hiring particularly senior leadership is, if I'm better at your job than you are, only one person is necessary, and it's not you. And it's half jokingly, but what I want to say is, I want you to be a wiser, better, more skilled leader, because I need to learn from you. I need to understand opportunities and challenges, and together then we all come together to work in an environment which is continuing to create, to be productive, to focus on the people that are a part of this community and the future of our students.
So what I hear is you hire people, you surround yourself with people who are better than you, you empower them. Mm-hmm. A lot of organizations, I'm sure as you know, and I do this work, a lot of organizations struggle with that. They don't do that. What is it about you? What is it about a leader that helps them be a person who can empower other people, who can release the lid?
Yeah, I always say in that same interview, I will not micromanage. Mm-hmm. I have high expectations, and at the same time, I will ask a lot of questions, primarily because I want to continue to learn, but it's also a way for me to check our progress, to look at what perhaps we're missing in some of the areas, and a lot of conversation about what's going on, what we need to be anticipating. One of my favorite books from several years ago was The Anticipatory Organization.
You told me about this when I interviewed for my job here.
And what I love about that is the question is, how do we keep thinking about the things that will influence or might potentially influence us, so that we can act and prepare rather than always to be on our heels in response. And so that's the part, I think, of empowering leaders, is to engage them. I expect to be challenged and questioned about my ideas. And if I model that, and I said as recently as just a day or two ago, I'm not ever offended by your questions. And the pattern to demonstrate that, I think, is essential in good leadership.
That's incredible.
I don't intend to be the brightest person in the room about everything. I still want to learn because it makes us better.
That's incredible. You've probably heard of Bill Gaither, the singer Bill Gaither. This is he's a Nazarene, I think, or he used to be.
Used to be, Yeah, know him well.
Yes, you do know him well. That's incredible. You know, one of the things, I grew up in Indiana, so I grew up around him, and one of the things I've seen with him that I've seen here at Point Loma is that's how he stayed around so long. He surrounded himself with really dynamic people. You know, if you'll allow me, Dr. Brower, I kind of want to, and I know our students do as well, I kind of want to dive in on your story a little bit.
Sure.
Did you grow up wanting to be university president? Did you think this was going to happen?
No.
No, okay. So what was your journey that got you from...
I didn't think it was going to happen when I interviewed here. So
so going all the way back, what took you to this?
I had two very influential, transformative faculty members in my undergrad experience. My first major was in history. And
mine was too. I graduated in history.
Well, I didn't. Ed Lejeune, Professor Lejeune, taught me how to think and write in ways that I didn't believe was possible. And it was in that process of also questioning, as I was studying in that time, kind of American history, early American history, and all of the implications around that, and there was kind of an inquisitiveness about that. However, in my summer before the junior year, was kind of restless about that, and in early junior year was introduced through a course I took to Dr. Paul Kleckner. And Paul, for me, brand new PhD that came in the field of communication, which this particular design of that was really beginning to emerge around that time. And he taught me to look and to think in new ways, new propositions. The area of communication study that I was in was interpersonal, a small group, the organizational design kinds of work. And he was one of the most creative folks I ever knew. And suddenly, middle of the junior year, I decided to change majors. And so my last 18 months was full-scale communication, and that began to influence part of the trajectory. The result of that, by the time I was getting toward the end of undergrad, was a desire to become a part of an institution of Christian higher education. I'd been transformed personally, academically, relationally, and spiritually in those days. So I came out of undergrad, went to graduate school to do my master's, happened to have, again, a young, relatively new professor who was a colleague, graduate student of Paul Kleckner. Okay. So I got a second dose of this work and in a whole new area of her expertise, and a lot of work in a kind of communication future. And I remember in that graduate class, I had a futuristic communication prof who probably 15 plus years before individualized communication entertainment devices began to emerge, was already talking to us about what he saw coming down the line in MP3 players and eventually, iPod kinds of things. And here we were years in advance. I wish I had invested then. But that was the kind of work that was going on, kind of anticipating the future. So that provided me an opportunity. I ended up doing some other work. Dr. Kleckner had actually started his own consulting company. So coming out of my degree, I worked for him as a consultant and trainer, did some work, and after a couple of years, went back to my undergrad institution to teach and do some other work. So that was how I made it. So my goal was to be a faculty member in Christian higher education. So that was my...
But you went into business for a while. I mean,
I did.
That's how you came to Point Loma, from Kansas City, I think it was. You were a publishing company. You were CEO.
Yeah.
So how did you get from faculty to CEO, then back to Point Loma as president?
Yeah, I was on the faculty trail. One late Friday afternoon, the president of the college asked me to come to his office. And so I did, sat down. He said, got a proposition. I just got word that we got a grant from the federal government to create and develop programs to support the college. I want you to tell me by Monday morning if you'll do this.
Wow.
So that was my transition from kind of teaching to teaching and doing some administrative work.
If you don't mind me asking, what did he see in you? Did he ask you that question?
I had obviously been an undergrad there, and in that role, I had opportunities to work with some projects out of the president's office, as well as I had been president of the student body.
Wow.
So he had seen me in some of those actions. And I think that was part of it. And so, frankly, the conversation Linda and I had over the weekend was, what do you think? Should we do it? And it came down to, here's a brand new opportunity. Let's try it. The other thing I had to remind her was that the president had said, it will depend on whether or not you can raise the grant money each year.
Okay.
Because once you move from here to here, you're on soft money. So there was some good motivation to be really good.
Absolutely.
Job. Yes. But it was like a doctoral program in institutional and higher ed development.
What were some of the top, one or two leaders? I didn't know this about you, so I'm learning right now. So what were one of the top two? So you really were an entrepreneur within a larger within a larger company. So you've gained a lot of skills. What were one of the two top lessons you learned during that period, growing that?
Yeah, the college I was at the time was financially strapped and struggled. And frankly, the grant I was running was the only money to do things. So there was an opportunity to partner and craft with creative people. And so part of the responsibility was to create a faculty development program. The college had none. To create an administrative development program because there was nothing. And that was the transition from when the admissions offices at colleges were there to kind of screen people out to moving to a recruitment model where we were actually going after. And so one of my areas of grant responsibility was to develop the recruitment operations within admissions. And the fourth area was a career-focused counseling and development service for students. And so those were the 4 projects. And the only way to do that on a part-time, half-time basis was to collaborate with people inside and bring experts from the outside. So I was kind of a manager of expertise and development processes with internal people and resources from the outside. And we got all 4, within a 3-year period, we got all 4 of those programs going. And it was really pretty impactful to a small college at that time.
Did some of that influence kind of the work you've done here at Point Loma? This is my understanding. When I got hired, Dr. Dan Bothy and Dr. Jamie Hess, who's the former dean and now the dean, they had mentioned you were really instrumental in the community colleges that we partner with today. Did that kind of come out of that entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, and the partnership.
The partnerships we've had with several of them here in the San Diego County.
And it began out of a relationship because Dr. Sonny Cook, who at the time was president of Grossmont College, she and I had talked over the years about how can we work together and how could we create a partnership for Grossmont to fulfill its goal of having students complete a 4-year degree. And we weren't yet there in our infrastructure. And then we started to develop our adult-focused completion programs. And so I called Sonny and said, let's get together, have an idea. And so we met, and that was August. And by December, we had a press conference at Grossmont College and announced a completion program in nursing to go from the associate degree to a bachelor's degree in nursing. And it finally came that both of our resources from Grossmont and Point Loma now aligned. And so that began the process of building upon that part of our education.
And now Southwestern College,
yes.
Mesa College. I've been out there with Dr. Frank Marshall. He'll take me out, and it's really cool to see all the things that are happening in all these community colleges. So that kind of came from that as well. Yeah. Okay, so moving into, we've got students here.
Sure.
Leading with service, leading with purpose. When you think back on your life, and I would say this just in this conversation and just what other people have said in the community, you have given your life to serving other people. I think a lot of people would say that about you. What advice would you give to a young up-and-coming leader of that mindset of service and serving the marketplace? Yeah. What's something you would say to them? Advice.
I think have a purpose. And I think always the notion of understand the role and relationship of people that you're involved in. This is not a journey to do solo. Relationships with people not only enrich the work life within an organization, but it continues to provide purpose for why we do all this stuff. One of the reasons I'm committed to getting out across campus and particularly having a chance to know students is it reminds me of why I do all the other stuff. Dealing administratively with issues and problems and challenges and frankly, griping in complaints sometimes.
Any organization.
It's part of organizational life, but if you only focus on that, you lose the grounding for why all of this infrastructure, why all of our people, why our programs and everything we do ultimately is based in the people of the organization and our work and service in transforming the lives and futures of students. And so that helps ground me in everything else that happens.
A mindset that this is about everything we do, all the money that's raised.
Yeah.
It's about the student, it's about the family, it's about the parent, it's about the professors, faculty, all of it. It's all about people. You mentioned purpose, and I think that is key. And one of the classes watching this is about leading with purpose. How do you, if someone came to you and said, Dr. Brower, I'm struggling, I'm in my mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, I'm wrestling with purpose. How would somebody discover that?
I'd probably begin to ask some questions about, so tell me about what's important. What are your priorities? What is it you do well? What is it you'd like to develop to do perhaps better? And what is it that gives you joy, fulfillment in that? And then let's begin to talk about how that might be focused upon either whether it's careers or aspects of service. And I think the other part about it, JC, is to also remind people that our lives aren't necessarily only to be single, single function. There's a breadth to life, and find ways of engagement, relaxing, enjoying things. What gives opportunities to expand your role? I decided years ago that travel, particularly travel to other cultures, enriched my understanding about life. I learned a lot of things that are very different about the way I grew up or life in America is, that brings great richness to life that I had never been exposed to, and found that there are great things all over different cultures that bring life and energy. So I kind of try to look out of what does it mean to experience those almost as a local, and learn about that and do that with other people's lives as well. Enter in, engage, and involve oneself.
So all of these things, service and purpose, even though purpose could be seen as it's a very personal thing, you would say it's really all of that's kind of found in community with other people, right? In relation to other people. And those things are really key. Community
changes us. And even in our worship, there's something about worshiping in community that provides a richness and a life and an experience with God that while moments with God privately are also important, what we experience together provides a community of worship that I think changes us and gives us an experience within our faith in a much deeper way.
Community is key. In our programs, we have leaders that, two kind, and I know you would agree with this for sure. I'm finding this out over time. We have some of the best students, the most thoughtful students in our programs. So as we kind of wrap up our time together today, I know in our leadership programs, we have anywhere students who are starting their career, and we have a lot of people transitioning. I'd love to hear, just kind of on a two-front basis, what would you tell, if that young leader who's in their 20s could sit down with you, what's one piece of advice you'd give? And then to the transitioning person, if you were to sit down and say, okay, you're 40-something, you're moving into the next season, what would you tell each of these people about what that looks like next?
Yeah, particularly for maybe a person beginning in their 20s. I think when I started, I felt like I was supposed to have all of this figured out, and that there was this clear single path. And if I could go back and kind of cut myself a break and realize that's probably not the way life unfolds. For some people it does. But for me, what I learned was taking and learning in each of those opportunities and continuing to grow and expand. A lot early on, I volunteered for just stuff in the workplace because I wanted to deepen my experience. I remember early on somebody said, we need, this was the case, we need an editor for this. I don't know what we're going to do. And I didn't have any expertise, but I said, well, let me try. And it's small shop and a little bit and worked together with some other people, and we produced things that the college needed at that time. And man, it was a great learning experience for me. We eventually were able to develop a real professional in that area. But I was part of a group that was the bridge from nothing to where we could do much better. And so that kind of pattern.
Trying new things out. Don't get stuck in a certain path.
And some of the things I tried, I knew, well, that's not the way I'm going to go. But it was looking for that and continuing to learn along the way. I also struggled with some of my experience and decisions early on. And, there are times you want to lay the Bible open and point to a verse. And, that's not the way I'm led. But actually, I tried that once. It was terrible. But a dear friend and pastor for me said, in that process, I had times that I'd worry about what the decision would be. And he said to me, Bob, you don't have a decision to make until you have a decision to make. So learn and kind of understand, but don't fret what might never come as a decision. And it freed me up to look at opportunities in a different way, and at times then be able to say, yes, that's where I think I need to go. And a couple of times where I really felt very direct leading of God's Spirit for a particular direction, but those were pretty rare.
I could talk to you for 3 hours because now I want to talk about decision making, because that is key. Maybe the next podcast we'll talk about decision making, how we do that. And then for our transitioning students, the ones who say and we have a lot of those in their early 40s. They've gotten out of the military, they're retired, and they're looking for what's my purpose for the next. And some of them come to our programs, they're seeking that. What advice do you give to that person?
Yeah, I've made some of those transitions, and as you mentioned at one point, I moved from higher education into business. And that was a hard decision for me because I had to question, was I giving up on my call to Christian higher education? And as I looked at that, I really felt led to pursue these new experience, activities, opportunities of leadership, that I wasn't abandoning the call, but I was actually building for me an opportunity to get new insights and experiences to really learn about a whole nother aspect of how to lead in a bottom line driven organization, which has helped me in my role here. Yeah, and it was a bit of a gamble, if you will, in a way of not totally being confident that I could do that, and yet having a sense of I can learn and prepare and develop, and looking at the organization and its people that I thought we can do this together. And so in transition, I think be open to some new opportunities. There's a risk involved, but risks can be calculated, and calculated risks to take action if you're prepared and willing to learn can be a valuable experience.
And probably in hindsight, all of that played, okay, now I understand why I left higher ed for a few years to run this organization. Now it's making sense. How have you stuck around for 25 years in this position and more? I mean, you're not going anywhere. I've heard you say a few times, you're not going anywhere. How have you stuck around when this is, I'm sure this is I don't know, I've never been to university, but I'm sure it's a tough position. How have you stuck around for so long?
Yeah, just recently I was talking to a consultant and she reminded me that today, now, the average tenure of a university president is about 3.7 years.
It's even less than what I asked.
Even less.
It's 3.
Yeah, we're really doing well. What I reminded the Board of Trustees a few years ago was, in my time here, I've actually been able to identify 4 distinct institutions that Point Loma has been along the way, and really to sense that we're in some transition now around that. And so each of those models has required new sets of skills or approaches, changes to how I work and lead, and what the resources are with people in the organization. So when I arrived, we were growing as an undergrad, and a couple years later, we hit enrollment cap. Operating at cap was totally different. And then the Great Recession. And then not too many years later, realizing that we had to adjust the institution and look to the future around our adult programs, our graduate programs, more opportunities. And so we began again to expand into external campuses. Liberty Station was one that we acquired. More recently, the Balboa Regional Campus. And we changed how we approached some of those things, but it also was a different type of institution that allowed that. So I think for me, part of the richness of my job has been that we have continued to develop as a university to meet new needs, to serve new groups of students, and yet to strengthen the core of our traditional undergrad program. So it's been that confluence, again, I'll go back to my motto of leadership, culture, context, membership, that was dynamically changing across those years, that kept a freshness to who we are, and yet had this kind of coherence around the quality of the people of Point Loma, which in my mind has been the sustaining work across all of those years for the university.
Incredible. We could just keep going, Dr. Brower. I won't keep you much longer because I know you have a very busy schedule, and thank you for this.
Sure.
Today. I mean, this is incredible, and I hope we get to do, maybe in a couple of years we'll do another one, and
sure.
we'll dive into some other things.
Yeah.
I've got some fun questions I'd like to ask you,
all right.
if that's okay, and that'll lead to our final question. Okay, so I'm just going to list this off, and you throw out the first thing that comes to your mind. Favorite day of the week?
You know, I think I like Fridays. It feels like things are a little bit concluding and wrapping up, and often my weekends are busy with university things anyhow, but Friday there's this sense of, okay, at least I'm concluding this part of it.
And the campus kind of pauses a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Too. Yeah, just a little bit. Favorite city in the U.S. besides San Diego?
Oh man,
that's tough because we live in paradise.
Yeah, that's really a hard question. This isn't a cop-out, but I actually enjoy almost every place I have ever been.
You find something new wherever you go.
I do.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I'll say Key West for me.
Okay.
That's like,
I'm a former Floridian, so
are you really?
That's a pretty good answer.
I love Florida. Yeah. It's great down there. The last song you downloaded?
Oh, man. I don't even know.
Or maybe the last song
it's mostly my wife downloads it and she shares it with me. I'm more that kind of guy.
Do you have a favorite singer or anything like that? Favorite music? You like all kinds of stuff.
I really do. Pretty wide range. I really enjoy traveling, some classical stuff just to kind of listen in the background while I read or do something. I grew up in the Beach Boys kind of area. I still have some of that on my phone that when I stop reading and I kind of want to bounce, that's what I do. It's kind of a favorite.
That's awesome. Morning or night? Do you like which one better?
You know, I was pretty good at both all the way along. I'm probably a little more morning person right now.
You get up pretty early. There's been a few mornings I've rolled in here pretty early and you're at your desk. I mean, it's like 7 a.m.
Yeah, one of the hazards of being on a lot of boards and being on the West Coast is I have a lot of 5 a.m. Zoom meetings, which gets me to the office about 4:30.
Wow, that's early.
Yeah.
I'm
not my best time, but yeah.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
Cats or dogs?
Oh, certainly dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coke or Pepsi?
Oh, always. I'm a Southerner, Coke.
Okay, all right, Coke. That's right. No, pop, I don't know if they said it. No, I'm Midwestern, so they called it pop back there. Soda pop, whatever.
Yeah, soda, huh?
Chocolate or vanilla?
Oh, man. Vanilla ice cream, but chocolate in terms of candy.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. Football or basketball? That's probably a tough one.
It's almost a draw. Okay. You know, I'm a graduate of the University of Kansas for my doctoral program.
Oh, okay.
They have a terrible football program, but a great basketball program. So a little edge to basketball.
Okay. I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, so I spent a lot of time in that area. Headphones or speakers?
Probably headphones. You know, I've got the nice little Bose.
Oh, nice.
So it kind of silences everything else going around.
And just keeps it going on there. Are you a saver or a spender?
I'm a saver.
You're a saver, okay.
Yep.
This is personal. Do you have anyone in your family who's more of a spender?
You know, Linda slightly.
Okay, all right.
But that's a good thing because
it's good to have that balance.
Yeah, I
Yes.
would just kind of hoard a little bit because I'm always working on a project. So yeah.
And just a couple more. Tacos or pizza?
Oh, tacos.
Tacos are really good. And then would you do a road trip or a plane trip?
Oh man, since I love international travel, it's plane.
You take planes.
Yep.
Final question is this: if you could ask God one question, what would that question be?
Funny question. Why pigeons? I don't get it.
You don't get it.
I think it would be something like, talk to me more about the purposes of your plan.
Wow.
Because I love the sense of God's purposeful action across time and understanding, why were you silent sometimes for hundreds of years? Talk to me about the purpose of your plan is what I'd love to know more about.
Well, if that ever happens, I want to be a fly on the wall for that conversation. That'd
be a good one.
Okay, it would be a great conversation. Yeah. Well, thank you again for your time today. This means more than you know. And Jackie has been amazing in setting this up. You just got to know, she's been a great coordinator with both Tyler and I, so thank you. Would you pray for us today?
Sure. Let me do that. Thank you, God, for the opportunity to do this good work. And thank you for these students who are a part of this Loma community. I pray, oh God, today, for all and for each of our students, would you guide them and enrich them? Would you bring purpose and direction in each life, Lord, that is a part of this community? I pray for our faculty and staff, for the guidance and the preparation that is provided throughout the university. I ask, oh God, that you would bless us in the work we do with others. Help us to be an influence not only in this community, but to every single place that we go. Bless us with your presence. Continue to call us to your purpose and make our lives together here in this place all that you have called us to be. Thanks for this time. Thanks for JC and his leadership in this academic program. And I pray your blessings upon all of us. Amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Brower.
Thanks, JC. Good to be with you.
Thank you.